Welcome to another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money, and I am here again looking forward to sharing another exciting day of conversation with you about, mindset. We always say, this is about mindset, it's about motivations, and it's about manifestations. And so the idea from this vlog was about me sharing my journey as a CEO of a startup venture, which can be challenging, to no ends. I say that every CEO, it's your responsibility to set the vision for the organization that you're planning to develop and launch. More importantly, identifying the customers that you plan to serve and understanding how you're solving a problem for them. Once you've identified the customers that you want to solve a problem for, then determining the capacity, meaning what size organization, what type of resources do you need, what type of infrastructure do you need in place, not only physical infrastructure, but technological infrastructure, which is going to be great. My guest today will be able to speak to some of that in terms of the type of technological infrastructure that's necessary in your organization, because we're managing data, right? Information about customers, about internal and external stakeholders. And then lastly, once you've figured out the capacity requirements, then you go out and raise the capital. And so raising capital is more than just going through a Rolodex and trying to approach people for money. There is not only a process that one must follow, because you have different capital sources. You have debt that's utilized at certain points along your journey. You have equity. That's another proper, access to resources along the journey. If you're talking about equity, you're selling shares in a particular entity. So you must be guided because those are securities. So you have to have a legal team that's able to inform you about the proper way to sell your equity, your shares, or you can misstep and find yourself in federal jeopardy. Those are federal offenses, federal crimes, if you, misappropriate these things. And also, the second you're trying to take in other people's money. So it's more than what comes to mind. It's not just as simply, showing up and asking someone for dollars to invest in your organization. So anyway, what I wanted to do was to share my journey as I am, in my role as CEO of ZenoVerse Wellness Group, and I'm raising capital for that venture, and it's been an exciting journey. So how do I maintain my mindset? How does that mindset inform the motivations that, come up in terms of what I should do each day to help further that vision? And what type of manifestations begin to occur along the journey? So today I'm going to have an exciting conversation with my guest. His name is Doug Ortiz. And Doug is on the data side, on the business and developing technical architectures for systems, physical systems within organizations. He agreed to join me today. We're talking a little bit about, mindset backstage, and I can't wait for you to meet him. I've placed his contact details along the banner, so you'll be able to follow up with him on both his own YouTube channel and his LinkedIn profile. So without any further ado, let me bring Doug into the conversation. Hey, Doug, how are you today?
Hello, how are you doing, Steph? I'm doing great.
Oh, wonderful. So glad you can join me. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, glad to be here. I'm excited to see where all this conversation leads us into.
I know. I think we can help a lot of folks because, like I say, oftentimes people forget how much their mindset is contributing to their daily journey. They think that it's just magically or not magically manifesting. And it's like, well, what did you think about, this morning?
Well, that's one tricky thing about mindset. Everybody is used to nowadays winning. You're trained to win. You study to win. You educate yourself to win. But what happens when you don't win, when you lose?
Oh my goodness. Now you're talking about something that a lot of people fail to consider, right? And that is definitely part of the formula. Sometimes you put everything into an effort, and guess what? It doesn't turn out how you expected it to turn out. So what is that? Do you call that a loss, or is that really an opportunity to learn something? And again, how you interpret that has everything to do with your mindset. That's what I say is it's mindset driven.
Yes, and the impact it has, because we're all set to that mindset, winning, winning, but it's not really. Life throws all kinds of things in your way,
Man,
and most of the time we're not ready for them.
man, you're talking about the truth. So let me ask you, Doug, oftentimes I begin with this. When do you first believe that you recognize you had a mindset? And do you think your mindset is the result of your nature, how you were nurtured, or a little bit of both?
I think it was a surprising mix of both,
Okay.
because when I started consulting independently, it was somebody pulled the rug under me. Life was going great, my career was here, then suddenly a change in plans.
Mhm.
Didn't know what to do. It was just as surprising to anyone. What do I do now? Everything that I planned for, everything I had built was taken, swept under the rug from me. Well, I have two options.
What age were you at this point?
I was around my late 20s,
Okay.
and I was consulting, working, and well, working for many organizations. That was the whole idea of the mindset. I'm working here, then I'm going to go this ladder and keep on going until I'm president or CEO, etc. But guess what? That did not happen. I got cut down in the knees. So everything that was planned was completely erased and removed. I wasn't ready for it, honestly. I had two choices. I had just married. We were happily married, and then this happens. Oh, what do we do now? I have I'm married. We're married. We just have a new life. I either start crying and get depressed and do nothing about it, or I go out there and fail or succeed. I think I'm going to go with the second one. It was hard. There was still a lot of sadness, but if I sit down there waiting on the couch for somebody to come and tell me, look, here's $1 million contract or here's $1 million job, it would have never happened. I'd still be there right now. That's the reality.
And that's the part that I find so interesting is a lot of times people have a lot of, goals, but they're dreams because they're not willing to do the work. And so you wonder, why won't they take action? If that's your dream, then you do know that to bring it to life, you need to be motivated to take some particular actions. And if you're not motivated to take those actions, that goes back to your mindset.
And
So,
the mindset
yeah.
is there are two of them, fixed and growth. Fixed, we're all used to it. We get a blindfold and you just can't look anywhere else. You just right in front of you. That's all you can see. But if you remove that blindfold, then you are set to other expectations, to growing. Yes, you'll fail, you'll fall, but that's how we learn to walk and run.
Well, that's
What
my question because is it even failure? See, I think that even the conversations are different. I was sharing this with somebody else. I said, when I was along the journey, when I hit what looked like, failure, I said, it's all in the perspective. I learned quickly that if I talked to someone who was typically an employee and their mindset was just about working a job and that was their form of security versus if I had the same conversation of the same set of facts with a successful entrepreneur, the entrepreneur quickly showed me, no, you gained here. And now in order to gain there, you just need to pivot here and keep going. You don't stop. So it's all in who you have, which is why, we've heard different expressions, but one expression says, kind of that fave five. Who are the five people that you spend the most time with? Because if you look around and look at their net worth, then that's potentially where yours is going to be. And if you're the smartest one in the room, then that's not the network that you want to spend the most of your time. You want to put yourself, just as you've stated, in a growth environment with some other people that are looking at the same set of facts but seeing something different.
It's that saying, do you want to be a fish in a small pond, big fish in a small pond, or do you want to be a small little fish in an ocean?
Yeah,
It's your pick.
it's your
Which one
pick.
do you think it's going to be? I'd rather be the small fish, and yes, there'll be sharks. There'll be all kinds of dangers out there, but you're going to grow from it. And I wouldn't, as you said, many people see failure as the end of the world. It's one step. You fall, you hurt, you just gather yourself, and then you get up and go again, and it'll happen over. That's just like a wheel. Keep on turning.
Well,
It's going to
it's
keep on
so
happening.
true. We were talking about just the analogy of sports, and we just had a big Super Bowl that captivated so many of us, our attentions. If it was just because people were talking about, the team and how each team had to play a full season, and they get down to the final seconds on the board, they're past the regulation time. Now they're in overtime, right? One team believes that they have the game in the bag. So their mindset is activated in a particular way. And another team was like, we still have seconds on the board. We can still win this thing. So, you know what I mean? It's a difference in perspective. And you're like, dang, that's the difference. When it comes down to showtime, right? I've explained this along career paths. When you're in a certain space, there is a point where everybody that's playing at the same level pretty much has the same technical competencies. But what's the difference between the good and the greats is that the greats also have invested in mindset development. They didn't just invest in their technical skills, they invested in things that would allow them, when they're down to those final seconds, to still have something else in their tank that they could pull out, because they're still focused on the win. They haven't given up that possibility of whatever that win is at that particular moment. And so that's
And
kind of what, we were tossing back, along,
motivation,
yeah, motivations. Yes.
because you had the mindset. They had the mindset of growing, and both teams had that. But another one sneaked in something else the other one didn't have.
Yeah.
They did not lose on their motivation. They kept it going until they said, I'm going to give it all. I'm going to fail. I'm going to lose, but so be it. But I'm
So
going to do it with my head up
yes,
and
it's
tall.
all, I'm gonna leave it all on this playing field, and that's, I've heard other conversations about, baseball players, for example, the baseball player that holds the most, you know, um, home runs also probably holds the most strikeouts, as a record, because you have to be willing to get up to plate every time aiming for a home run, but you're not going to always make a home run. In fact, what's going to happen is you're going to fail most times with a home run as an outcome, but you're going to get better and better at what it takes to be in the right position, the right swing, the right timing, and all of those things. But I want to go back to what you said earlier, because when I was asking you about how you believe your mindset was formed, you said both a combination of nature and a combination of nurture. So, where is it that you've been able to distinguish between the two influences in how you've thought along this journey?
I would say the nurture part, many would say, look down at it. I grew up in third world countries. Even though I grew up in the US, I'm a New Yorker, but then I moved out into Latin America.
Okay.
And that was a whole different ballgame. It set up, I got to see things differently, completely different, in which you fail and it's hard to get up. You
What
most
age?
of the time don't.
What age were you, Doug, at that time?
I was around 10 years old.
Okay. All right. All
And
right.
that shifted the entire perspective, because then I saw when you fail, you fail. So you try not to fail, but that also limits you, your motivation,
Mhm.
your mindset, because you're very limited on what you can do. So you learn to live within your means, live within what you have, and make the most of it. So whenever you're ready, you manifest, even if it's little blocks, you have set up a structure
Mhm.
to succeed, even if it's little by little.
Mhm. Mhm.
those are, would say, the nature and nurture that was, some would say it's blessed, others cursed. Depends on how you look at it. It really depends on how you look at it.
I really think though it's kind of, what, our first environment are our families, usually like our immediate families. What is the mindset of those folks who are nurturing us and letting us know? I remember that I made some decisions when I was 3 years young. And so I know that that was part of my nature because nobody had really, told me these different things. I just had a strong determination, and I had been encouraged, but it also was part of my nurture. I got an opportunity to spend my very early years with my grandmother, and that exposed me to a lot of different things. I was in a safe environment. I was loved, and I got to kind of be part of an environment that allowed me to flourish. And I had natural instincts and desires, but I negotiated something as a 3-year old. And it was amazing that the adults listened to me as a 3-year old. And then later along the journey, I noticed, 9 years of age was another very, very pivotal age where I really began to assert myself in ways. In fact, the business that I'm so happy to be created, have created and in the process of, capitalizing and launching is really living out, a declaration that I made at 9 years young about what it was I wanted to do in the world. So I'm a firm believer in not only setting intentions, but also continuing along the journey, because along the way, there were times that I felt like I was off track because I was in an environment that I was trying to make stick, for example. And it's like, if this sticks, you're not going to get to what you said you wanted as the ultimate outcome. Now, looking back, I can see why some of those things didn't stick. I was there to gain something, right? Is it a reason, a season, or a lifetime? It was a reason or a season. The lifetime is where I am now. But I didn't always know that along the journey. And what I had to do was invest in tools to help to feed my mindset, especially when the journey is hard, right? Because there's all of us, right now, I laugh at myself when I'm in the US and between California and Nevada. And the winter months, it's cold. So I can guarantee you that every morning when I wake up and it's in the 30s or something, I'm not trying to go out for my morning walk or go out and ground. I'm not. I already know. And no matter how much I, try to use psychology over myself, it's like, look, it's a hard sell, right? So what I started doing was imagining, well, then what if the months of the year that it's super cold and maybe I should be on a Caribbean island during those months, because then I avoid, so I literally started setting an intention so that I could put myself in different environments during different times of the year. And the thing is that it worked. Like once I set what I want, the intention on my visual board, it all manifested. And I couldn't even believe it. I didn't even know how, but it did, right? So
The interesting part is you set up everything there. You probably, looking in retrospective, you can easily say, oh, it just happened. But subconsciously, your
yeah.
mind was setting things up, was already planning, setting up the building blocks, the entire environment so that you can just perform that action.
Yes. So tell me more. How did you transition from, if you'd say, having the exposure to the global markets and then kind of segueing back into US, and how, as a technologist, how does that factor into, your business and how you approach opportunities and helping companies? Because, infrastructure, be it hard or software, constantly evolves. There's always new something, but at the core, there still is data and information that we must always be aware of and have some type of method of managing. So kind of fill in a gap for me. Tell me some more.
Sure. So once I was back in the US, I started noticing there was a infrastructure, a lot of network infrastructure, a lot of technology, a lot of platforms. But once, the key word that you said, Where's the data? And this is early 2000s. Data is there, but it was not a commodity. You start asking yourself, okay, why is it not a commodity? I'm seeing something that nobody else is doing. What's wrong here? You start researching, finding a gap, learning, oh, databases are starting to grow. Then you start seeing, oh, different type of technologies are using XML, types of ways of interconnecting data. That evolved into all these buzzwords we hear today: big data, data lake houses, it said data marts. Those eventually came into what we are today in different ways and aspects, but it's still data and it's being mined in multiple ways. Our wristwatches, guess what? Information, the Internet of Things, your mobile phones, our computers, everything's turning data everywhere, 24 hours, 24/7, everywhere. Somebody's got to make something out of it. Predict data analytics, being able to predict and analyze. And that's where all of that came from. 25 years ago, I started seeing data becoming a commodity. And that helped. That set me up for preparing myself to where we are today, being able to have a bigger picture and how to understand. You start small and how big it is. So you can expand and go back and forth. But that was the key turning point for me, understanding where we are, where we could be, where could we come in, where could I come in, and possibly contribute to this community that we see here today.
And what have you seen in terms of some of not only your predictions and anticipations? What do you think, right? Did you make a good bet?
Well, definitely, I'm seeing a lot of them paying off already. Have been during the decades that I started looking at that. They've started paying off. For instance, all these small devices, it's just the beginning. Every device that we buy, that we hold, is generating data constantly. Our treadmills, our workouts. Now we have those smart watches. We have the smart tech for workouts, smart dumbbells, smart kettlebells. They're generating, you're tracking the information. And everybody is attempting, because we're not there fully yet, but we're realizing that there is a market there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that was probably the secret. I remember I was telling someone last week that as a young person, you used to either have a leaning towards math and science or communication. So naturally, I was more of the math, science, engineering mind. And my mother, though, was more, the art, the communication. So she gave me a balance of a little bit of both. But later, when I was in high school, I had an opportunity to do a summer program at UC Berkeley in microcomputer electronics, where I was learning to build computers and the intro to coding. And I decided at that time that I didn't want to just focus on kind of the technical part of building those systems, but that I would use my technical brain in business applications. And I remember later, one of the organizations that I worked for was Esprit de Corps. I was in the kids division, and every year as we prepared for the new line, we had to create a database. And so I worked with the tech team to create this database. And I remember how, that then translated into my first career was in advertising and marketing communications. And because of my desire to quantify what I was recommending as strategies and tactics to fulfilling business objectives, because I always had that technical piece before we even had data analytics, I was providing my clients with analytical tools that have now come, full-fledged ahead. We're really talking about, I'm aging myself now, I'm taking you back, 40 years ago, right? Along my journey when I was just beginning. And then when I look at data, but I build every business with an understanding and value of not only that there is data that's available, but there's data specifically that I want to capture, because it can inform multiple sets of not only decisions, but it gives you an insight in what, if you say that you're providing a solution to a marketplace, how do you know if you're even providing a solution to what that marketplace still wants? And what they want today doesn't mean that they're going to want those same things tomorrow. So how do you know where they're showing or demonstrating either gaps? As you said, I love gaps. How do you indicate or learn about those gaps if you don't have some set of not only capturing the data, but organizing the data in such a way that you can make truly informed decisions? Because there's a lot of people that have access to data, but that doesn't mean that they know how to utilize or to make appropriate decisions based on that data.
There's very little, and you probably heard the term before, decision support systems. They're still around. How many are being used today? It's been 20, 30 years, and they're still not used. That just baffles me.
Yeah. Yeah, that sort of that was when I transitioned out of advertising and went into real estate development. And again, same thing, because I was more of a technical background when I started learning construction project management. In addition to real estate development, what served as an asset was that we were beginning to put our projects on Microsoft Project. And I remember the construction team that I was working with, they had been working together for over 30 years. These guys were barely touching a computer. They just used the schedule as a pretty diagram. And I'm like, no, 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 no. If you put all the variables in, but if you put junk in, right, you're going to get junk out. But if you really put in, the connectors, the constraints, and if you develop the schedule, this program will let you know if you're slipping a date and recalculate all of those outcomes. But it was like pulling teeth, but it was my competitive advantage. Again, there you go, Steph. Good decision to understand the technology and be willing. And then I remember the last company I was consulting to, they had paid for this expensive, kind of like you say, the Rolls Royce of project management, but then nobody knew how to use it. So then when they brought me in, they're like, well, she'll be the one. Yeah, but then I'm doing the management for everybody. The controller doesn't know how to put. I said, wait a minute, guys, wait a minute.
That's too much work.
That's too much work, like I can't run the whole company. And I remember complaining at the time, why is it that I feel like I have to run the entire company? But again, that was preparing me for right now. That is why I know what I'm doing with building out this portfolio of wellness resorts. I'm a real estate developer building out a portfolio of wellness resorts and organic farms. But guess what? I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know how to do it, and I know how to pull in place, those various resources to help along that process, which had not I had the various experiences along the way, and had not I been willing, my mindset to go, what am I here to learn in this particular season, so that it's going to help me, down the line. And so let me just learn and contribute so that I continue to develop. But that was mindset. That was
Growth mindset. That growth mindset and your motivation manifested
yes.
current situation.
Exactly. It is so true. So, what do you see on the horizon? Are you working with, what size organizations are you mostly working with? And what kind of common instances are you finding that require you to come in and help them out?
Data. We go back to the same thing. Data. Most of them, we want to do this, but we don't know how to organize the data, how to model it, how to structure it so that we can make it useful to us in the process. And some are a little bit more advanced than others. That's where you come in and help them understand, well, we could do this or take this other approach. And little by little, you start helping them. But you have to try to understand, as you said, at the beginning, you're not going to know what they're trying to do, because you can't know in 5 minutes an entire business.
Sure.
It takes time. You have to delve into it, ask questions. And many call them dumb questions, but they're just questions.
Absolutely.
Just asking them. And then you eventually, sooner than later, get to the point like, oh, I think you could do this, this, and that. And this is going to lead you here, there. And it's all going to manifest for you there in front of your eyes. You're going to start seeing it. Once they start seeing results, it's very nice to see how everybody's eyes pop out. And they're like, oh, okay. I had no idea we could do this.
Well, that's
Ex-
exciting because, I look forward to being able to do a consultation with you and my tech team because there are some very specific goals that I have around data. And I want to make sure that we're developing, the infrastructure as we begin to capture data. We'll begin to have our first set of resorts open by Q3 or Q4 of this year. And part of the process of how we engage with our guests is everything about the data. So,
You're going to have
so
devices, for
exactly all kinds of tech. We have plenty of things. I'll wait and save it for a one-on-one conversation of some of the tools that we have in mind. But I have some exciting, again, that closet techie. I'm like, I can't get away from who I am, right?
I'm excited to hear, and I'll be looking forward to our conversation because I'm sure there's there's technology out there. We
Yes.
have to just leverage it. That's really the only thing left.
That's really it, leveraging the technology. Well, as I shared with the guests early on, I'm having a conversation with Doug Ortiz. He's a technologist. I have his LinkedIn profile as well as information on his YouTube channel. He's not only a practitioner or professional, but he's also an educator because his videos are informative, will help you understand if you want to understand a little bit more about what are we talking about data, about databases, about architectural infrastructure, about what that means, about how that relates to organizations that you're a part of, whether you are the owner of those organizations or you're working within those organizations. They're all built on some type of data that they're capturing, that they're generating, and also analytics behind that data. So Doug is one of the folks that you may want to check out and be in contact with to learn more about. And Doug, thank you so much for joining me on Naked with Dr. Money. See, you were worried. You thought you had to get naked, huh?
Well, I was a little bit worried about that part. I was all for the money. I'm not sure about the naked.
See, I got you. I told you it was harmless. I said it was going to be an easy conversation.
Like, oh, this is not sure it's going to go the way I want it to, but okay.
Well, you were perfect. And see, it was
Thank
harmless.
you so
So
much.
you're not in trouble with your wife or family, and you were able to safely get naked with Dr. Money. So I look forward to continuing our dialogue. I'll set up a one-on-one for you and I following this event. And again, like I said, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our many more of these. I really enjoyed the process, and I'm looking to many more.
Wonderful. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, everyone, I want to thank you again for joining me for another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, aka Dr. Money. I'm the CEO of ZenoVerse Wellness Group, and we have several assets, several brands that are coming to market. The first of which is our 420 Wellness Jamaica portfolio of destinations. You can go to our website at 420wellnessjamaica.com. Register to be on the list. You will receive information about the grand openings and which properties so that you can schedule your wellness week. We deliver wellness 1 week at a time at our various resorts around the world. So we have a bunch in the pipeline, want to get you there so that you can live your best life. And what we focus on is healing your mind, body, and soul. When we talk about mind, we focus on healing from emotional trauma. And so that's where you'll have an opportunity to experience, our bench of thought leaders that continue to grow because I'm constantly looking at thought leadership around mindset and healing from emotional trauma in particular. On body, we focus on detoxing your body to make sure that you have ultimate gut health, because we know if your gut is healthy, then it also is going to contribute to not only your mental faculties and thinking and ability. And if you're feeling great and you're thinking great, we focus on soul. And that is in our belief that we all have ancestral assignments. And if you find yourself in a tribe of like-minded individuals, then collectively we're able to support one another with making sure that we bring those assignments forth as a contribution to humanity. So again, check us out. And if it is that you like my journey in terms of how I'm maintaining my mindset, my motivations and manifestations, check me out every Wednesday at noon Pacific time for another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. Until I see you next time, be well. I'll see you soon.